بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحقيقة أهلا بكم أحبتي في درس جديد وممتع مع المواد الهندسية وخواصها يتعلق بهندسة المواد وكيفية فحص المواد واختبار المواد تحت في ظروف معينة وفي مقاسات تجريبية مخصصة ومحددة لذلك. علم اختبار المواد هو علم وبحر من بحور هندسة المواد. سبحان الله، علم جدا متضمن أو متشعب إلى تشعبات هائلة من الاختبارات والطرق التجريبية وكذلك الطرق الحسابية الرياضية لهندسة المواد، وكذلك اختيار الطريقة الأمثل لاختبار المادة لفرض أن المادة تصلح لاختبار معين أو تصلح لتطبيق معين، كما في الطائرات أو في السيارات وفي صناعة السبائك وفي التعدين وكذلك في صناعة المركبات الدقيقة والرقيقة كشرائح والدايودات والصمامات الثنائية والمستشعرات والمجسات كما ترون. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the all living God. We are today in a brand new lecture that actually mostly associated to the material engineering and science that talks about, or even trying to visualize the material engineering and properties and testing of materials field. We are now about to go through a domain of the material testing and material testing field, which is very important here and very much correlated to the material science and engineering, as well as it is a very purificative, or even it is a very folded science and very folded domain here. Just deal with the material engineering and their properties are an ancient art here, an ancient art that man's attempts, according to man's attempt to visualize the material testing, or of course man's attempt to compose as well as to fabricate the optimal components here for the certain or for an ambient engineering applications such as automobiles or even aircrafts and jet plans and alloying and dressings, minings and prospections and various components such as the components actually used to be fabricating, or even the components used to be introduced to the high accurately or high definitive LCD screens, liquid crystal display screens, as well as the LEDs, lighting diodes and manufacturing, or even the compositions and the assembly of diodes and the sensors and probes and all that that actually mostly correlated to the cyber science, which is the science of computerization and IT technology and IT domain. So we are today about to go through a very specific engineering materials and properties, and very specific engineering materials and their features, which is mainly meant to go right through, meant to be gone right through, or even meant for the students, or meant for the instructors to go right through, as you can see right in front of you. So today, the material testing here, as you can see right in front of you, and the material engineering and their properties, material engineering and their properties is the unit 1 or the chapter 1 of today's lecture, today's essential lecture to go with for the entire both genders of the materials instructors as well as the material students and seniors. Unit 1 is the engineering materials and their properties, or the engineering materials and their features and their characteristics and their properties and their particularities. يعني كلها تعني المواد الهندسية وخواصها. اليوم نتناول أو نتحدث عن المواد الهندسية وخواصها بالدرجة الأساس. So today we basically God willing, of course, and God willing the Almighty, glorified and exalted, today basically and mainly we're just going to have to talk about the engineering materials and their properties and their characteristics and their particularities and their features and their character zone aspects. The trustworthy يعني الجدارة. In order to identify the engineering materials and their properties، يعني التعرف على المواد الهندسية وخواصها. الجدارة يعني the aim or the purpose. يعني الجدارة يعني الغرض من دراسة المواد الهندسية وخواصها. Just to identify, or to be able to know the engineering materials and their features and their characteristics and their particularities and their properties, or any of that, or their aspects. The goals the goals الأهداف يعني the goals after studying this unit the intern will be able to the intern يعني المتدرب سيكون قادرا على categorize engineering materials and their various properties or their various features, knowing the mechanical properties, elasticity, plasticity, embrittlement, and ductility. Differentiate between destructive test and the materials. Percept the importance or the essentiality of the SI specs units and as well as the standard measurements of materials and mechanical components. يعني إدراك أهمية توحيد المواصفات والمقاييس للمواد والأجزاء الميكانيكية. تجميع وليس توحيد. Utilizations of different SI units in the mechanics domain such as area, volume, power and pressure. يعني استخدام الوحدات المختلفة في مجال الميكانيكا المساحة والحجم والقوة والضغط. تواترون أمامكم. يعني الأهداف لدراسة كما عللنا وكما أسلفنا just like we stipulate here, or just like we stated before, or priorly at the beginning of the lecture, or on the commencement of the lecture, or at the inception of the lecture, better for us to say, is be like at the beginning of the lecture, or at the start of the lecture, even best for us to say it like this, or better for us to say so, that the required usage or requirements of certain applications here, requirements of certain applications justifies or even compels us to come up with a new testing for materials just to figure out the importance as well as to figure out the validity or even the reliability of materials for a certain or even to any ambient application we are about to go right through or even we're about to serve right accordingly or about to work accordingly. يعني كما أسلفنا أنه الاختبارات الهندسية ترغمنا على الاتيان أو ليس الاتيان وإنما اختبار المواد اختبار مقنع a persuasive or even convenience testing for materials here to percept the importance of the testing or the importance or the essentiality of the materials or even the bulks ongoing to or ingoing to throughout the mechanisms till they reach a very essentiality related to a very important or very essential level of applications or a level of applicability. The required performance level يعني مستوى الإداء المطلوب just for the intern to reach a consolidately of 100% trustworthy or 100% aim. Just for the intern here to consolidate or even to master the trustworthy 100%. To master the trustworthy 100%. يعني أن يصل المتدرب إلى إتقان الجدارة بنسبة 100%. ETA 2 hours. Trustworthy requirements physics and mathematics 101 يعني مبادئ الفيزياء والرياضيات. 101 يعني مبادئ. أساسيات كما ترون أمامكم. هنا تعريف المواد الهندسية here as a definition for engineering materials the article 1.1 man used the various materials since grown on earth or since the formation on earth since it was existed to earth to make their simplest and the simplest weapons and tools then afterwards searching for the new and brand new as well as best for the materials to become currently confirming the basic stone or then the curb for the scientific and technological and industrial progress. So we can say the definition for engineering materials are the primary or even the initial materials or the raw materials and manufacturing materials that used in producing freight forwarding or even packages and variety of tools. So, which is going to say the definition of the engineering materials are the primary materials or even the raw materials, raw and the post-manufactured materials which are used in the production of merchandises as well as the various tools. يعني المواد الهندسية المواد الأولية يعني المواد الأولية raw materials المواد الخام الأولية primary أو preliminary materials المواد التمهيدية والمصنعة يعني المصنعة أو بعد التصنيع fabricated and the initial materials or the fabricated and the raw materials that are used in production of merchandises as well as the various tools. Despite the overwhelming engineering materials and their folding, so it could possibly to be divided generally to the following manner. يعني وعلى الرغم من كثرة المواد الهندسية despite of much of engineering materials and their folding or in so it's possibly to be divided, or it could be possibly divide them generally to the following manner. يعني يمكن تقسيمهم بصورة عامة للنحو التالي: metallic materials such as ferrous materials يعني المواد الحديدية such as the mild iron as well as the cast iron or the pig iron and the steel. Non-ferrous metals such as copper, Cu, and the Leg, silver, and the Pb, lead, الرصاص. mild iron يعني الحديد المطاوع. malleable iron الحديد المطاوع. حديد الزهر pig iron. والفولاذ الستيل. non-metallic materials التركيز على تقسيمات المواد رجاء. Just please concentrate on the materials divisions. Here's actually right for you. So non-metallic materials such as, or non-metallic materials and including organic materials such as the plastics, timber, and the elastomer. يعني المواد العضوية مثل الردائن والخشب والمطاط. The organic materials such as the glass, potteries, and the cement. يعني الزجاج والخزف. potteries يعني الخزف والسمنت. Features of engineering materials. Article 1-2. يعني الفقرة 1-2 خواص المواد الهندسية. Definition. The features of engineering materials are the only specific measurements that describes the quality of engineering materials, and the quality of engineering materials are also considered or even represents the language or the phrases at which the designer currently places its own requirements for materials which withstands the laws of structure as well as the deterioration and the chemical attacks and radiation and heat. At the same time, the features are all divisive, or even the feature we can make use of the features, also consider them the basics for the comparisons of the uniformity or the tacticity of the different samples of the single bulk or for the single material. We can only notice there is no such two slices of materials of a single material has the same or even isotropic completely and accurately, and this is due to a many. There's actually two slices of single materials are completely and accurately isotropic. So this is due mainly to a many agents or even to a many parameters at which the material is exposed to during manufacturing, or even during industry, or even during fabrications, or as a result for the formation tasks, or even the time agents, or the temperature or humidity variations, or even to a further factors. يعني أو إلى عوامل أخرى. The features of engineering materials are divided to multiple sections, such as the table 1.1 is actually including a summarization or including visualization for the highlighted sections. يعني تضمن تلخيصا لأهم highlighted يعني أهم الأقسام. The features, the section and properties, physical, dimension and shape and density and porosity and humidity, etc. Chemical, the chemical compositions, alkali or even acidic or even corrosion resistive, etc. Physiochemical, water absorptions, shrinkage and expansions due to heat, etc. or heat or even thermal expansion يعني تمدد نتيجة الحرارة إلى آخره. بصري optical, color chroma يعني اللون, light penetration or light transparency and light reflection, etc. يعني نفاذية الضوء, transparency يعني الشفافية وانعكاس الضوء إلى آخره. Mechanical, resistance, toughness, hardness, stiffness, embrittlement, etc. يعني مقاومة, متانة, صلابة, القصافة إلى آخره. Thermal, specific heat and expansion, specific expansion and thermal conductivity, etc. Electromagnetic, galvanic action, magnetic penetration or the magnetic penetration or the magnetic infiltration, etc. يعني النفاذ المغناطيسي. infiltration يعني النفاذ. Acoustic, sound conversion or the acoustic or even the auditory conversion and the auditory reflection. auditory يعني الصوتي, الانعكاس الصوتي إلى آخره. The table 1 illustrates divisions for the engineering materials particularities. يعني جدول 1 يمثل تقسيم أو نعم يمثل تقسيم خواص المواد الهندسية. Mechanical properties of materials. Definition. The mechanical properties are the properties associated to the material behavior when exposed to effective loads. When exposed to effective loads such as tensile or even compression or impact or bending or abrasion, etc. or ablation, or etc. Note that the mechanical properties are used as a base to compare between the variety of engineering materials. يعني علما بأن الخواص الميكانيكية تستخدم كأساس كقاعدة للمقارنة بين المواد الهندسية المختلفة. Mechanical properties, the main or the major or the principal or even the fundamental or even the foundational mechanical properties. يعني كلها تعني الخواص الميكانيكية الرئيسة هي elasticity المرونة is the ability of material to recover their original dimensions and shapes and retaining a permanent deformations after the effect or after the effective load removal. يعني هي قدرة المادة على استعادة أبعادها الأصلية وشكلها بتشكل دائم بعد زوال الحمل المؤثر. The plasticity, the ability of material or even the capacity of materials to retain a permanent deformations, which means the material are no longer recoverable, the material dimensions are no longer recoverable after the removal of the which means the material are no longer, the material dimensions are longer, or even the material dimensions are recoverable, or the authentic or the original material dimensions are recoverable after the removal of the effective load. So the plasticity is pretty much the opposite of the elasticity. يعني اللي هنا عكس المرونة. There's no such totally flexible. There's no such matter that actually considered completely flexible or even completely plastic. There's no such material to be completely flexible or even to be completely. There's actually a very much great materials to be completely flexible and elastic, or even to be considered as completely plastic. Materials such as elastomer can retain a substantial deformation, or even can experiencing substantial deformations, but or substantial formations, but it will retain in original size and shapes after removal of the effective load. Right after the removal of the effective load, there are many materials of high plasticity in certain extent of loading. After that, will become plastic for certain extents, such as also become plastic to a certain extent, such as the steel, as well as them. Further materials has a high plasticity or extreme plasticity, but elasticity, such as lead. Ductility المطولية أو المطيلية أو المنطولية can be identified as a particularity that permits the material for a substantial plastic or even for a huge plastic deformations and the effective tensile loads, which is the ability of materials to be forged and the ability of materials to be extremely elongated whenever they are exposed to a tensile load. The embrittlement or brittleness is a particularity that makes the material fracture before any noticeable change in shape. يعني هي الخاصية التي تجعل المادة تنكسر بقبل أي تغير ملحوظ في الشكل. So the ductility is pretty much opposite of the brittleness. The ductile materials has a substantial or even a huge plastic deformations when tensile loaded. يعني إذا حملت تحميل شد مثل النحاس. أما المواد القصيفة مثل لا النحاس، الفضة، ليس النحاس ولا الفضة. أعتقد إنه البوتاسيوم، لا وليس البوتاسيوم، الصوديوم. But the brittle materials will be fractured before any noticeable shape shifting will occur or probably occurred at the loading, such as the materials are listed, or even the materials are visualized or even explained right in front of you. Before any brittle materials are fractured before any change in shape inflicted at loading, or any change in shape inflicted or even takes place at loading, such as you can see right in front of you, the materials or even the masses or the components that are mentioned here right in front of you. 5. Malleability الطرقية is the ability of materials to have a substantial plastic changes or deformations under compressive stress or under a compressive loading, which is the ability of material to have or to experience cortosis with forging, or even with malleability with forging without fracture, or with fracture. قدرة المطالع مادة على التفلطح, cortosis التفلطح, which is the ability of material to cortose to experience cortosis with forging with fracture. يعني بالتفتح بالطرق مع حدوث الكسر. حشو كسر والله حشو فراكشر. Malleability is a particularity pretty much similar to the ductility, but the loading in the ductility is the tensile, but in the malleability the loading is in the case of compressive stress. يعني الطرقية خاصية تشبه المنطولية، لكن التحميل في المنطولية هو الشد، أما في الطرقية فهو في حالة الضغط. Strength المقاومة is the material resistance for any effective load, such as the tensile resistance or the tensile strength if the effective load is a tensile load, as well as the bending stress or the bending resistance if the loading is bending formed, or even the loading is a bending. يعني إذا كان الحمل حمل انحياء. Stiffness الصلابة الكزازة is a feature of material either as a material strength feature for any type of the shape shifting or any type of shape deformations, denoted and these stiff materials is denoted as withstanding materials for any extreme withstanding materials for elevated loads with a relatively change occurrence in shape. The toughness المتانة الثامنة الخاصية الثامنة للمواد المتانة. Toughness is the eighth particularity of materials to be visualized. Is the ability of material to resist or even to withstand shocks and impacts and to absorb the mechanical energy. يعني قدرة المادة على مقاومة الصدمات وامتصاص الطاقة الميكانيكية. The resilience الرجوعية أو المرونة is the ability of material to absorb the resilience or the elastic energy that vanishes completely after the removal of the, or that keeps or remain completely after the removal of the effective load. امتصاص الطاقة المرنة. They observe the flexible energy, or to absorb flexible energy that completely remains after the removal of the affected loads. The hardness material is the particularity. The hardness of the material, of any materials or any solid mass, is the particularity that enables them to maintain safe superficiality, or even to maintain safe and smooth smooth adhesive surface under effective loads, or even affected by loads. Safe, smooth surface, or safe and adhesive surface affected by loads. And the hardness can be identified as the ability of material to resist ablation as a result of friction, or the resistance of abrasion, or indentation, or even the cutting, or the indentation, or even the truncation, or any or the occurrence of any mark at. الخدش truncation القطع، يعني الخدش indentation، مقاومة الخدش indentation، مقاومة كنتيجة الاحتكاك، يعني friction resistance. Article 40 is the 10th. So the hardness is the 10th particularity, or the 10th property of materials to be mentioned, or to be visualized, or already visualized. Article 4.1, the testing of engineered materials. Godwin, of course, subsequently will be able to visualize, to donate further details of the to be able to contribute, or even to be able to introduce further details of mechanical properties of materials, especially the calculation methods and determinations, and the measuring the great features, conducting mechanical testings by using a very accurate or very specific tools and apparatuses to a prepared samples, to any pre-prepared specimens. يعني باستخدام أجهزة وآلات معينة أو نوعية, specific tools and apparatuses to a very pre-prepared specimens for testing. The mechanical tests are divided to the mechanical tests or referencing. The mechanical tests are as follows: the destructive tests of materials. And the specimen will be deteriorated, or it will be destructed, and will be no more safe to further inspection. Will be no more safe for further inspection, such as the fracture or bending or indentation, or even ablation, etc. highlighted test by the following method or the highlighted test conducted by the destructive manner are as follows. يعني أهم الاختبارات التي يمكن إجراءها or proceeded the highlighted test proceeded by the destructive manner are as follows. يعني أهم الاختبارات التي يتم إجراءها بالفحص التدميري هي اختبار الشد torsion test tension test compression test اختبار الضغط hardness test اختبار الصلادة impact test اختبار الصدم torsion test اختبار الالتواء وcreep test هو اختبار الصدم اختبار الزحف للمواد. Here it's considered for you further for materials that actually used to be considered as tests to proceed to a very specific or even a very accurately toleranced materials or very accurate or materials with very accurate tolerance or very accurate on very specific or precise clearance or tolerance. The visual inspection test, liquid penetration test, liquid penetrant test, leak test, the magnetic particle test, eddy currents test, and ultrasonic wave tests, and the radioactive or radiographic test, and the magnetic particle test as we mentioned or as we visualized priorly. يعني كما أسلفنا سابقا. The material specs, Article 1.5 or Article 1 material specs. Definition: the specs are the conditions set by the consumer for the producer or even for the technician or the technologist or the engineering science applicator to do or only to perform, stating the required the required desires of the products as well as the material or the engineering process. The specs contains a very specific variety of conditions, such as the conditions associated to the used industry methods. The industry methods to be used. Finishing and dimensions and shape and tolerance يعني الشكل والأبعاد والإنهاء. Mechanical, chemical and physical properties required. Desirable flows boundaries or the desirable flows limitations. حدود العيوب يعني حدود العيوب. The way to prepare the testing samples and the testing methods and inspection. يعني كيفية تحضير عينات الاختبار وطرق الاختبار والتفتيش. The appliance and the acceptance and the refereeing or the judging and the certificates. Acceptance and rejection. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Acceptance acceptance and rejections and verdict and certificates. يعني قبول والرفض والتحكيم والشهادات. Standardized unification Article 6.1 التوحيد القياسي. The standardized unifications standardized unifications is commonly known along years and generations or in years and generations throughout years and generations and used in the building or even construction of the human civilization to serve man and simplify the job that it faces. With time, the predictions actually begin to emerge by dozen or even begin to emerge massively and inflate يعني تتضخم كما هو المعتاد as it is used or even as usual. The science began to interfere to solve or even to figure out. The studies and research began or result that conducted in this context result in the necessity to set a specific measurements and the specs for materials as well as the dimensions and the properties of the components tolerance and the variety of tools that actually which the merchandise and tools and slices are consist of. till we can proceed projections by dozen for a certain magnetized to a whole unified system that can compels the similarity and the homogeneity of each group of the identical components being in a single manufacturer or even in multiple manufacturers or even in multiple manufacturers to be then afterward to be assembled easily to form a variety of merchandises or tools finalized. Article 161. The standardized specifications يعني المواصفات القياسية. Definition. The standardized specifications are the preferred specifications due to a specialist's pact that only concerns about the specifications. The standardized specifications are used as an acceptance and rejection conditions for the materials decided or even to for the acceptance and material rejections decided by the concerned committees يعني بين الهيئات المعنية. Article 162. The committees or even the assemblies of the standardized unification. هيئات التوحيد القياسي. Different assemblies called the standardized unification assemblies are prepared and publish the standardized specs of materials and productions or products, and the way of inspections and search the way of inspection and testing for each committee at a time in the limits of their specialty, or each limit at a time specialized by, or if each specialist committee or specialist assembly. The committees consist mostly of scientists and engineers of the university's research committees and the governmental interest, as well as the governmental assets, and the committees and the assemblies of consultant specialized engineers and the special inspection assets in this certain branch related to or associated to the specs. The highlighted specs or the highlighted committees are the American Society for Testing and Materials, الجمعية الأمريكية لاختبار المواد ASTM الموجودة في تقريبا كل أو في معظم القياسات لجميع اختبارات المواد. Is actually consists in most of the standardized test and specs for all materials written all over, or even stamped at any alloys or any components used to be produced by or even used to be execrated, or even used to be an output from any further testing that conducted to the material concerned, or it's conducted to the component that actually the ASTM is stamped right all over, or the ASTM is stamped right too. British Standard Society BSS, Deutsche Institute for Normung بالألمانية يعني the German Institute of Specifications, the Egyptian Assembly of Standard Unifications ميم قاف, and the Internal Assembly and the International Assemblies of Specs, or the International Standard Organizations. The function of International Standard Organization or the International Committee of Specifications is to set a specific unified measurement or set specific unified specifications after discussing the specifications or the required desires for the specs by the different sides. After consulting the specifications of the different sides, recommending يعني بعد مناقشة مواصفات توصيات الجهات المختلفة. Article 1.7 or Article 1, the units, the SI units. To conduct any measurement for a certain quantity or for any particular quantity, a special standard to identify the scalar value has to be exist or has to be presented. Thus, with the end of the 19th century, multiple SI systems units have been formed, such as the metric system, highlighted as the metric systems, modernized for the units been counted, or as a global or even international system for the standardized standardized inspection or standardized units, SI, the SI systems, pacted or even pledged by the entire worldwide states or worldwide nations in the Global Convention of the Measurement or the Global Convention of Scale held in 1960. Then this system defines any unit scale for each quantity of the physical quantities that we actually used to deal with in our daily life. The table 1-2 gives the SI basic systems units in a global or international system of units, and the table 1-3 the derived units from the basic or the fundamental units of SI. The scaled quantity، الكمية المقاسة، الرمز، the denotation or the sample، كمية مقاسة ورمزها، وحدة القياس measuring unit، and the sample of SI4، the sample of SI4 يعني الرمز SI لها. الطول L length بالمتر متر، الكتلة ماس ميم M بالكيلوغرام كيلوجرام kg، الزمن تايم الثانية S، ودرجة الحرارة تايم بالكلفن K. The table 1-2 is the fundamental units of the SI system. The derived units or the derived units for a special scale quantities، يعني الوحدات المشتقة للكميات المقاسة، للكميات المقاسة الخاصة. For a particular of these special derivative or specific derivative units for a special scaled quantities. The scaled quantity by samples or the units of the derived measuring unit، the derived measuring units يعني وحدة القياس المشتقة. The sample SI4 يعني الرمز SI لها. The area A squared meter. The volume meter cubic. The linear velocity meter per second or meter for each second. The angular velocity omega radian for each second. The linear acceleration meter for each square second. The angular acceleration radian for each square second. The force Newton as well as the pressure is measured by the Newton for each square meter. Newton for square meter or Newton for square meter. Better for it be like the for square meter here. For square meter. Yeah, it's gonna be better. Table 1-3 illustrates the derived units from the SI basic units. Here, as you can see what in front of you. The unit 1 is a theoretical internships or theoretical exercises. يعني وحدة الوقت تدريبات نظرية. From the exercise 1.1 to the exercise 11.1, select the right or the correct out of the four suggested A's or out of the four suggested answers. The practice or even the exercise 1.1, the particularities of engineered materials as follows. The specific measurements or the specific units that describes the materials qualities or the standards or the criteria should be taken considerations in the materials formation processes or the materials formations procedures. The mechanical properties only without physical and without actually the mechanical properties or the mechanical features only or etc. Just the features that are actually listed or even the features listed here or even features listed as you can see right here in front of you. D. The behavior of materials while exposing to elevated temperatures and the elevated pressure rates. يعني سلوك المواد أثناء تعرضها لدرجة الحرارة العالية والضغط العالي. Or the materials behavior while experiencing elevated temperatures and the elevated pressure as well. The exercise 2.1.2. Mechanical properties, mechanical features such as the elasticity. The elasticity is the ability of material to retain the original sizes and shapes with a permanent deformation or a permanent formation after the removal of the effective load. The ability of materials to have a permanent deformations or to retain a permanent deformations, which means the material's dimension or the material original dimensions is recoverable after the removal of the effective load. G, the particularity that permits the material for a very huge plastic deformation or very huge plastic change or shift in shape and affected by tensile load. The feature that permits the material or even that makes the material or compels the material to fracture, to experience fracture before any noticeable change in shape. The exercise 1.3. Mechanical property of ductility. The ductility is a mechanical property of ductility such as or defined as The ability of material to retain the original shapes of having or after experiencing plastic or even permanent deformations, permanent formations after the removal of the effective load, as you can see right in front of you. The particulars that makes the material breaks or even break up or even material fractured before any noticeable change in shape takes place. Exercise 4.1. From the mechanical properties or highlighted mechanical properties such as stiffness. The stiffness is the ability of materials or any particularity for the material resistance, particularity or the property of material resistance for any change in shape, or the ability of material to resist the dynamic loads, which the ability to resist and absorb the mechanical energy. You can answer any of the four answers. You can give any of the four replies for the exercise explained. يعني يمكن اختيار جواب من الأربع أجوبة للتمرين الموضح أو المشروح. Give the ability of material to absorb the flexible energy that completely remains after the removal of the effective load. D, the particularity that enables the materials of having a very safe adhesive surface affected by loads. واحد. The exercise 1.5, or the exercise 1 actually right in front of you. The tensile test and the compression test are the structure test, or the visual auditory test, or the visual audio tests, visual auditory experiments, or the visual auditory trials, or the physiochemical trials are considered from. The exercise 6.1. The hardest tests are, or the hardest test is the structure test, or the auditory, just like we stated before, just like we stipulate the auditory, or even the visual audio, video audio trials, or even the physiochemical trials. Exercise 1. The ability of material to have a permanent deformations, which is the material, which means the material original dimensions are longer or even recoverable after the effective of the after the removal or post to the effect load removal. The elasticity or the plasticity or ductility or brittleness. Brittleness is the same as the embrittlement. Embrittlement, the compilation, or the embrittlement of the is the compel of the material to have a very fragile. To compel is to compel the process or the procedure to compel the materials to have by annealing only, to compel the materials to have or even the bulk of materials to have the ability to fracture at any effective load. Exercise 11.1. The particularity that makes the material fracture before any noticeable change in shape is elasticity, plasticity, ductility, brittleness. Here is an empirical test. Here's an empirical example, or even better for us to be like a mathematical example here to solve. Required to be solved, or required to be figured out. The exercise 12.1, or 112. An aluminum cylindrical spaceman is actually with a diameter of 5 cm and the original length of 17,000 cm is compressively loaded with a 15-ton valued compressive load. Their final length is, or its final length became, as you can see right in front of you. Calculate one. The required article, or the required category here. The area of the original spaceman profile, or the area of the original spaceman. The area of the original spaceman. يعني مساحة القطعة الأصلية. ليس مقطع. مقطع تحذف، مو تحذف، وإنما لا يمكن وضعها هنا. just we can place the profile here because the profile or the original spaceman section, the area of the original spaceman section. We just got to say section here, just instead of a profile, just because the profile is way too greater word or even way too greater term to be mentioned in circumstances we're actually dealing with right now, as you can see in front of you. Geometric stress, engineering stress, actual strain and the engineering strain. Young's modulus, معامل يونغ. تم بحمد الله